We're back, everybody. Back
Hey,
on
we're
track.
back and we're going to hit you with some relationship advice. Actually, maybe not be advice. It might just be us babbling about relationships and hopefully you learn something.
I saw a TikTok recently of I guess it's like a fable kind of from Africa. And they were saying that, oh no, it was a researcher. That's what it was. Let me get this story straight. It was an
Right.
anthropologist in Africa, and he got a basket of fruit and he put it in a tree, and he was like, all right, now I want you guys to run over the tree, and whoever gets the basket of fruit first gets to keep it. And he said 1 2 3 or whatever, and he turns around and all the kids have their arms around each other and they're walking to the basket. And he was like, what are you guys doing? I said whoever gets there first gets the basket. And they said something about like, how can one of us be happy if we're not all happy? And
Oh,
it was like the cutest thing ever, but it to me symbolized the message of community and how we're all connected, whether we recognize it or pay attention to it or not, and that we have to rely on each other and support each other to get through this life.
yeah, I agree. And even when it comes to business, and I'm going to share something with just like supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some businesses in one city, right? And then in the neighboring city, which is probably about 2 hours away, or an hour away, I have a business there that actually depends on the one that is the main big one an hour away. Um, and that smaller one didn't raise their minimum wage, didn't raise their insurance policy. They didn't. Everything was fine and dandy, but they had to face price increases because all the surrounding cities increased their pricing and expenses and whatnot. So going back to that if one, if you can't act like you're isolated, even if you're a city, because you depend on everybody else around you. So it really sucks because those surrounding cities, if they're messing up, it affects you no matter what.
It's a trickle down.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not good.
And there was a new research study that came out that showed the single most influential factor in our lives that predicts our health later in life. So I think they were saying that I don't want to mess it up. It was like midlife, they checked in with people and they got like stats from them. And then later in life, the one factor that made the most difference on the people's health was the quality of their relationships.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. So
quality of romantic relationships or quality of all the relationships?
all their relationships.
Oh,
Yep. If they had good solid relationships and a good support network, then they lived longer and happier.
I love that.
Yeah, it wasn't diet, it wasn't exercise, it wasn't any of that stuff. It was relationship quality.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me of why we want to talk about relationships today, because I have a friend where she's dating a guy, and the guy's great. He's funny, he's well off, he has a career, but he's young, good looking, all that, right? And athletic, but he just shows up just a hairline less than enough. Just
Mm.
he barely makes enough to that he gives to the relationship. And she's always frustrated. And there's situations where she would plan something and know in the back of her head that she feels like, oh, is he going to show up? And if he doesn't show up, he actually has a great excuse. It's because, I don't know, maybe a kid's thing, or maybe because a work thing, or, a bunch of stuff, right? So he has a bunch of well-to-do excuses, but it doesn't feel good dating him. And we all like him and we all like her, obviously. So it's kind of like when she tells us things, I listen most of the time. I don't want to give her direction or advice or whatnot, unsolicited advice. And so she asked me what she should do the other day, and I was like, oh, I don't know. Like if she breaks up, if I tell her to break up and she breaks up and then she misses him and she resents me and then she won't share that with me. So it's kind of like that too. But also that I don't I don't know if he is in the position or ever will be in a position to change because his life is good. His
Yeah,
life is fine. So there isn't and I really believe change happens when something's too good not to change, or something hurts so bad that you have to change. And in
yeah,
his life, there isn't that. There isn't extremes. Everything is fine. He has a nice
yeah,
house. He has, he is divorced, but his kids are fine, and he's happy, and he has good energy around her when he sees her. But he's just undependable as a boyfriend.
mm. Well, I firmly believe that we are only as needy as our unmet needs. And if your needs are not being met in a relationship, then it is your responsibility to communicate that and see if it can change. And if it can't, then you need to go.
How much time do you give? Let's say if you communicate that, how much time do you give until you go, oh, that that's okay? Like, it's interesting how people could tolerate it for years, or some people could tolerate it for days, and they're like, nope, I'm good. A day after, they're like, I'm good. I'm never going to talk to that guy again. Versus, oh, we've been doing this for years.
I think that speaks to the complexity of human beings, For example, I have a client whose mother is in an abusive relationship and she stays because they have a kid together and she doesn't really work. So he is the financial provider. And, in Florida, my advice would be, well, leave because he'd have to pay you alimony because you've been married for so long and blah, blah, blah. But in other states, the law is different. And in addition to that, he's so wealthy that he could pay for the best attorneys ever. And he has told her that if she tries to leave, he's going to take her daughter from her. And,
Oh,
sometimes that does happen. I have another client whose ex-husband did take her son from her, and she's literally not seen him since he was a baby. And although he makes way more money than her, she has to pay child support because he was able to hide his money better than she could.
oh,
So I've seen those kind of screwed up scenarios. And I think that sometimes people stay for situations like that. I also know that we are attracted to what is familiar. So if you're used to being in a chaotic, dysfunctional relationship, sometimes people's threshold for tolerating it is a lot longer than another person who maybe is not used to that kind of life and just couldn't tolerate it. So
oh.
there's a lot of factors that go into when a person reaches their breaking point. And from a professional standpoint, I say as soon as you realize what's going on and who the person is and the fact that they're probably not going to change, that's when you need to go. But obviously, it's a whole journey for people to wrap their head around. So everybody's timeline's different.
And I think going the acceptance phase is harder than people think. You know what I mean? Because you have to truly just accept that he's not going to change, or she's not going to change.
Yeah.
And say, is that worth it for you? Is it worth fighting for? Or because there's always, people always think, oh, there's always that what if he changes and then he's a perfect person, but I'm with him for potential. He has the potential to be perfect. What do you say about that?
I mean, we should definitely not get with someone just because of their potential. But you also never know what a person's going to do. But if you're expecting or asking someone to change, then you need to be looking for, are things actually changing? Is there evidence that something has actually changed? And if there's no evidence, then after some time, it doesn't matter if the person's capable of being more or not, they aren't. And that's the bottom line. So I know the other factor that we have to consider when it comes to toxic, abusive, unhealthy relationships, whatever wording you want to use, is that the good times are often so good that we basically get addicted. And it's literally, we've proven it through studies that show our brain chemistry and all of that, that essentially we get to a place where we're addicted to those good times. And when the bad times come, they're awful, but they're always followed by another good time. So people,
I do want to say that I'm probably a proponent, not proponent, but I've been in that place for a long time. I've been in relationship where they're abusive or just neglectful, because the handful of good times are so good that I'm like, maybe that could just be forever. Maybe X, Y, and Z. But in reality, it's like, no. Yeah, that person would never do that for me.
There's usually, again, going back to the complexity of humans, there's usually reasons why it's difficult for that person to change. And I truly believe, a lot of people say that, like, for example, narcissists know what they're doing. I think a lot of abuse and chaos and toxicity happens completely unconsciously.
Me too.
I don't think that people are just sitting around plotting and planning how they're going to do things. I think psychopaths do that, but I don't think every abuser does that. And I think
agree.
And I think that that's part of the confusion for people, because you get to know someone and you're really like, I don't know, I don't think they're a terrible person. You like see the good in them. And then it's hard for you to just accept that like all of this was purposeful and it was a manipulation tactic. Like I don't know, I don't believe that.
Me either. I really think that people don't know, and a lot of the things they do is a trauma response.
Yeah.
They were traumatized at some point in their lives, and that's how they react, or they don't know what healthy feels like, to the point where healthy actually feels boring because they're so used to the loudness and craziness of a toxic relationship, because you're loud and everybody's in your face. It's fun, right? And you have the highs and lows, so there's never a boring moment. But maybe a healthy relationship, when it shows up in your life, when you're usually exposed to a toxic environment, looks boring to you.
Oh, absolutely. That is absolutely true. And again, there's research on that. And we can, at least what I've noticed with people, is that they basically reach their threshold, which it comes largely through talking about this stuff and like learning about it. And the more you know, and the more you notice things, the harder it is to just blow it off and justify it and all of that stuff. Because now you know too much. So people reach their threshold faster when they're really like learning this stuff and confronting it. And once they do, they can shift that in their life and actually be happy and enjoy a more healthy relationship. But it takes some unlearning, and it's difficult.
But what if, let's say, like, okay, I'm really unhappy right now. I'm going to start seeking help, or I'm going to start going to therapy. I'm going to start journaling myself. Or I'm going to start reading articles, listening to podcasts. A really good one is Therapy is Dope. I've heard that one. That was pretty bad. No, but you know what I mean? They start doing the research and they go, hey, this person unknowingly might be a narcissist, or at least it has parts of it that whatever, or going to the quote of literally just hearing quote of going, unmet needs. I become needy when my needs aren't unmet. It's so true because I normally in a relationship where I'm not needy, but in this relationship, I'm always begging for his time. And
I hate
even
the
one,
word needy.
yeah, and even that one quote could change the way the person thinks about the relationship. Like then they'll have a red light of going, oh, wait, there's a red flag here. Wait. Why do I not feel good? Why do I feel sad trying to hang out with my boyfriend right now? You know? Why do I feel bad begging for like minutes of his time? Why do I question myself when I need to make a phone call to him? Why do I mean then that those whys circulate and bring you to a place where you go, hey, you know what? This isn't enough for me anymore.
Mm,
Right? And I think silence, and this is what Brene Brown always says. She goes, silence is the worst thing happen because silence, you add shame and silence in a petri dish, and it triples. You know,
that's why I
so you
like our
just
sensory deprivation tank.
so you just need to. Oh yeah, that's good. You need to talk about it, or you need to think about it, or it needs to come up. Sweeping under the rug only gets you so far. Then at some point, you can have a huge bump under a rug and be like, what the hell is that? And you can't walk through the room without tripping. So you're gonna have to uncover it,
Yes.
hopefully sooner rather than
It's
later.
I was talking to a client this morning. I don't know her that well. We haven't been working together that long. And she said, ugh, I don't like the feelings. I don't, all of them. I don't like them. And I think I laughed because, that's a very common response that I get from people. But our feelings are really important for us to pay attention to and tune into, because if we listen to ourselves, we are much happier and freer. And so if we're feeling like our needs aren't being met and we're unhappy with that, then we need to do something about it. And it's pushing us to do something about it. And when we do something about it, we feel a lot better. I mean, I'm not going to say you don't go through like a grief process or anything, because of course you will. But in the end, people feel better. So
Yeah,
we get in our own way of feeling better because we're afraid of the temporary discomfort.
yeah. So what did she? How did she go over that client specifically? How did she get over? Oh, I don't really like the feelings. I don't like any of it. You know what I mean? Like,
I can't say that she's over it. It's probably going to be an ongoing battle. Um, but, I remember this guy telling me once, I'm surprised humans haven't evolved past emotions. And I was like, what? That's what makes the human experience.
yeah, that's
That's
true.
the whole deal. And what I told the client was, we have to have all the feelings, because if we don't, there's no contrast. There's nothing to compare to. If we lived in utopia, we would be bored.
Yeah,
We wouldn't be grateful. We wouldn't be happy. We wouldn't be peaceful. I mean, maybe for a short time, but the way that humans operate is we need the dichotomy. We need to have misery along with joy. Those
just yeah. The sweet doesn't taste that sweet without the bitter.
exactly, there it is. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you don't need to feel sad all the time, but like you said, pain, right? There's growth in pain.
Yeah.
And I do
Yeah.
want to say another thing. Sorry, that we talked about last week, and I actually told my boyfriend this because he was going through something, and I said, look at it like a movie. You know, the guy that he decoded humans, and he said, look at him like a movie, and don't put yourself in it. Then when you have control of your emotions, then you could live, and you could let everything go, right? And you don't have to take things personally. You won't get mad, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's easier said than done. So I want to tell our listeners, like, have some grace for yourself, because yes, things are going to happen. But if you know the concept of decoding, right? And you know the concept of saying, okay, if I see myself as a character right now in this movie, what is it saying? Just having that dialogue would just shorten the feeling process, you know, the feeling of, oh, I feel really shitty, or the shame spiral, or whatever it is. Once you watch yourself and you get used to just watching yourself, it just happens faster and faster. Not saying that you'll never have the feelings. Like you said, we're all human, so we're gonna have those feelings. But now you have the tools to change those feelings so you don't feel so shitty all day. So you're not sitting there feeling sad all day.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've gained. I am still very human, unfortunately, and still react to my emotions. And I am not always in control of my emotions, but I can definitely notice that the amount of time that something bothers me is not as long as it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's shaved down over time, you know. It's not
Of
like
course,
I
and
just
you doing it every day. Think about it. You doing this as a profession, and you still get bogged down on things, right?
oh yeah, I'm still very human. I mean, I tell my clients all the time, like, please do not look at me as having all the answers, because I am still human, and certainly I still mess up. Absolutely. That's also
Yeah.
part of being human, is being imperfect. So welcome to the shit show.
Yeah, I know. And I think about even our podcast, right? I think about that sometimes and I go, oh my God, I'm pretty sure I said something that's going to cancel me in like 20 years from now, right? And I'm going to say more things that's going to cancel me in 20 years from now. Um, you know, and I am a shit show. So it's kind of like we're going to make mistakes. But the thing is, what I'm proud of myself is I'm having more and more grace for myself and forgiveness for myself, and say, hey, yes, Julie, you messed up. Yes, Julie, that wasn't smart. But at least I could say that and go, yeah, that wasn't smart. But I still love you. But I understand. But I forgive you. And that's okay. You know,
Yes.
and
Yesterday, a client came in and she said, "You're going to be disappointed in me." And I said, "That's okay. I'll still love you." And
uh
that's how we need to talk to ourselves. I
yeah,
might have disappointed myself, but I can still love myself.
I love it.
Yeah. I don't know. We just got way off the rails of the relationship thing. Was there something? Did we ever resolve?
Nah, I think it really comes down to trauma response. I didn't realize as I was telling you that, and then you're giving me that advice, or giving me what you thought about it. It really was like, oh, it has nothing to do with the relationship. If you think about it, most problems in a relationship, if you watch yourself like a movie and you take and you get away from it and you don't have an ego and you know you kind of remove yourself from it and you're watching yourself, that's the best way to say. And if you're watching yourself, you could treat yourself like a best friend, or your
Yeah.
daughter, or your brother, or your father, whatever, right? And you look at this loved one and you go, "Ugh, I don't want him or her to go through this." Right. And then you're finally looking at yourself as a character. And you go, you know what? I wouldn't want her to go through this. She doesn't need to be in this relationship. Um,
Mm,
and I think knowing then and having that mindfulness of that, oh, so powerful.
so powerful. It really does start with thinking. All change starts with thinking. First of all, this could be a problem. Okay, that's step number one, is recognizing that there's a problem. And then
I
from
don't feel
there,
so good.
yeah. And then from there, we think about it some more. We usually go back and forth with ourselves. Like, is it a problem? I don't know. I don't know if this is a problem. And we do that for a little bit. And then when we finally decide, yes, I think this is a problem, then we move into gathering information.
Okay.
And we have to gather all this information, sort of like plot and plan what our next move is going to be. And that's it. It's not linear, so we might bounce back and forth a little bit between like, never mind, I don't think it's a problem, I'm going to let this go for now, or like, I'm so overwhelmed by all this
Uh-huh.
information, I can't do anything right now. um
Oh.
but eventually those two things lead us into action, and the action part is very, very important. But some say the hardest part is maintaining after the action part, because it's
Oh
easy
yeah,
to say,
absolutely.
I'm done with you, let's end our relationship. but then I'm gonna call you 2 days later and be like, I think I made a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I remember my biggest heartbreak, right? That happened when I was 30. When we broke up and I started telling people, oh yeah, we broke up. And they're like, have you been, have you
Yeah.
been doing the dirty? Or did you call him? Or you guys been and it wasn't. We did a like clean cut cold turkey breakup. And we didn't reach out to each other for months. And everybody I talked to thought I was lying, or they're like, I don't know. I was so hurt, and I was waiting for him to reach out. And I think, and now we're friends now. So I think he said the same thing. He was so hurt, and he was waiting for me to reach out, or like figuring out if there's a solution that actually would be better for us, Um, and then nobody reached out. But that ended up being the healthiest thing because I literally was forced to be alone. I was forced to be in my thoughts and forced to, deprivation tank basically, right? And been like, God, you got nobody. Like, oh my God. So I just felt really, really sad, but it opened the doors of why am I feeling sad? Why isn't he coming back? Why isn't so I literally would go Google, why did he break up with me? Why isn't he coming back? Why is he and that pops up a bunch of articles of self-help and things like that. And hearing other people talk about their heartbreak actually was very helpful. Oh my God,
Yeah,
not
I definitely, that's going back to that whole community and relationships and connection. That's a very integral piece of our healing and our health and our mental health. It's all connected.
So I guess we would say if you're in a place where you're like, that guy's not good enough, but I'm not sure and I just want to wait around, I would say go ahead and wait around. If you feel fine, just go ahead, that's fine. But continue to reach out to your community. Continue to lock arms with your friends and get over, try to get the fruit from the tree together. And
Yeah.
then you could join clubs and do things and whatever. And then the more that community meets your needs, maybe the more you realize this isn't good enough for me. Or the more it's going to wake him up and be like, oh my God, I'm going to lose her if I'm not spending time with her because all these other people are spending time with her.
One thing I feel like I need to throw out there before we end is that one of the worst parts of toxic relationships is that it often leaves you really isolated to where you don't have a community. So if you don't have a community because people got sick of you talking about it, or you don't want to hear what people have to say about it anymore, or people refuse to talk to you because of it, whatever the case might be, it's time to find a new community. It's time to like go to church or join a exercise group or do something so that you're at least making some kind of connections. Book club, intramural sports, there's any number of things that you can do to foster the possibility of building new relationships. And he or she probably isn't going to like it that you're starting to do stuff again, but that's going to be really important for you to begin to build yourself somewhat of a community, even if it's like surface level relationships.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's my lash feel.
I love it. No, I think it's really, it's so important. And I love that we started with that and we didn't even plan it. And we went right around and started at the top. It's
We
that
got our
important.
groove back, baby.
Yeah, it just took us a little bit, a little break.
All right.
Well, thanks
Well,
for joining us, guys.
yes, we'll see you next time.